only Sylvester will stand firmly by your side at every step, from diagnosis through survivorship, providing you and your family peace of mind and assisting with everything you need before, during, and after your stay with us. Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center is South Florida's only NCI-designated cancer center and specializes in treating the most complex cancer cases. Your first-class cancer care is just a flight away. Learn more at sylvester.org.
Attention HR managers and business leaders. Want to boost productivity, reduce absenteeism, and show your team that their well-being matters? The Lightroom now offers custom corporate memberships designed to enhance energy and mental clarity, reduce stress, and improve overall health, creating a healthier, more focused workforce. Invest in your team's well-being because a thriving team leads to a thriving business. Visit thelightroom.ky to learn more. It's a new era in wellness.
When I first started going to Healthcare Pharmacy, it was because it was convenient. But over the years, I continued to shop there because I trusted them. One day I was picking up my prescription, and the pharmacist noticed an over-the-counter medication in my basket. She said, "I hope that's not yours. It will interact with your prescription." And I thought, wow, thank you. Trust is so important when it comes to your health. Healthcare Pharmacy, with 2 locations, Grand Harbor and Governor Square, where they care about my health.
Hello and welcome to For the Health of It. I'll be interviewing Dr. Larissa Johnson. She is a well-known local psychologist who works in the UK at the moment. Hello and welcome to For the Health of It.
Hello, Ms. Tara. Thank you for having me.
I am so happy that we are finally connecting on this subject because it was so important that we talk about the subject, and it's so good to have a Caymanian to talk about the subject, and it's intergenerational trauma. So, Dr. Johnson, would you explain or define what intergenerational trauma is in simple human terms?
Sure. So yeah, generational trauma or intergenerational trauma, or sometimes it's referred to as ancestral trauma. It's how trauma is transmitted from one generation to the next. So essentially, we can feel the impact and effects of trauma even if we did not personally experience it. So maybe your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors lived through traumatic events. That means you could personally still feel the repercussions of that family trauma.
Okay, so when we think about this in talking about like in our DNA or in our muscle memory, how does it show up?
Yeah, so trauma can travel through several different pathways. Could be words, could be what we know to be kind of violent acts. It could be biologically. So there is a field of study known as epigenetics, which looks at when stress alters the way genes are expressed, meaning that a parent can carry trauma in their body and they can pass down an out of whack nervous system to their child, to the baby. But trauma can also pass through silence and secrecy. So if we don't speak about an event, confusion then replaces understanding and coherence. Our trauma can also transmit through habits that we have, tone of voice, facial expressions. Maybe there is an environment, the home environment is one that's just wrought with tension, and then that can shape everyone's nervous system in the home to kind of be hypervigilant, be ready for danger, even if we didn't know what originally took place.
So picture this, we're responding to something we don't even know that's there.
Yes.
Wow, that's pretty deep. And people who are listening, they might be thinking, well, we're not going to intergenerational trauma, but I saw an interview with Miss Daphne Orritt some months ago about the seamen leaving when they left in the 40s and 50s, and she said it was, or likened it like a funeral when they left the island. And I was like, it put a finger on for something that I felt my entire life. So could you explain how that prolonged separation and loss and uncertainty can in fact impact our families down the line?
Yes, so there are quite a few ways this can show up. When families are living with this prolonged separation, ongoing certainty, ongoing loss, we might respond with fear. there might be some anger, we might shut down our emotions, or maybe we'll pick up a lot of extra responsibilities, even as kids. So children are seeing all of this in the home as well. They're watching how the adults are coping with this separation, with this loss. They're watching how adults are handling feelings, how things are being talked about or not talked about. And when we're talking specifically about Cayman's maritime history, where men are gone for long periods and it feels like a funeral, this could then create what we understand today as attachment wounds. So when a child doesn't experience consistent emotional presence, that validation, even if the love is there, they can learn that connection is inconsistent, it's not always reliable. And that can then show up within them later on as hyper independence, not trusting others, not trusting any support that comes their way, or maybe they are feeling like they always have to manage on their own.
Wow. Is there another side to this?
There are always other sides.
And what are they?
So when we experience attachment ruptures, maybe we do the hyper independence, the difficulty trusting, but also we might see the loss, the grief, the anger manifest in more aggressive ways. And that could look a whole host of ways in and of itself. It can be aggression towards the self, aggression towards others, towards our environment.
I mean, we have to put it out there that they weren't just leaving the island for the sake of, ooh la la, I'm going to have a vacation. There was a reason, but can an 8-year-old understand those reasons? They just think their dad is leaving them, right?
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, in the lack of kind of contradicting information, a child will almost always think, I am the problem when something goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
People leave, maybe there's chaos in the family, there's crisis, things aren't being handled the way that they used to be because we don't have daddy in the home, but no one's talking to me about it, so I come to the conclusion that it must be me. And so children can carry that with them, and it can turn into this internalized shame.
Okay, and how could that show up in our population, that shame?
So shame, yeah. Oh gosh, it can show up in many different ways. Shame is what we would call a withdrawal emotion, because we feel we're flawed, we feel we're unworthy of love, and we can tend to isolate ourselves. And we might turn towards addictive behaviors. We might disconnect from others emotionally. We might choose to just remain on our own because to be exposed feels too vulnerable. It can manifest in many different ways. We might end up taking out the pain that we feel internally on others. There's that saying, hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just one manifestation of that.
Well, how can we move the conversation forward and help people to understand that some of the reasons why they may be acting the way they're acting is from a generational wound?
Well, that's a tough one because people might not even know that the way that they're acting is because of a generational wound. So I guess one of the main places to start is with awareness. So if we're talking about healing intergenerational trauma, we need to be able to notice and name the patterns, right? So there needs to also be story repair. So this is when we're able to tell the truth safely. We're reducing secrecy. We make our spaces a place that others can be held and heard.
Okay. In other countries where this topic has come up, has there been a intentional healing? Has there been any data that it helps?
That healing helps?
Yeah, that we can talk about it, that intergenerational trauma, talking about it helps.
Yeah, so talking about it, connection is the biggest, I guess, driving force behind the healing. So whether that is I speak to someone who is a safe other person, and that becomes the space that I can share what has happened to me or to my ancestors, or I start engaging with other people and I'm able to co-regulate, meaning that I can exist safely with another person. The evidence does show that connection is one of the strongest protectors against trauma. So yes, there is the opportunity for healing from intergenerational trauma through speaking, but maybe not necessarily speaking about everything. There are various different methods that people can access to heal without having to go through the really intense and potentially difficult and painful details of what happened to them or happened to family members. There are many different ways through which they can express themselves and allow for nervous system regulation and strengthening connection. And that can look like moving the body, it can look like connecting with people through sport, through song, humming, rocking together, just being next to someone else that you feel safe with. But yes, definitely there's the evidence to support that connection will aid in healing from generational trauma.
So one of the things I think how we are dealing with it, and it might not even be a deliberate choice, because awareness is part of the healing, right? And in our small island, we don't talk about it. So it's become part of our way of coping. We don't talk about it. We know something is wrong, or we feel something is wrong, but we're just going to continue going along, la, 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 right? What's the cost of this?
So we don't often talk about these things in our societies, and I don't want it to come across that we need to blame individuals for being silent about these things, because silence and secrecy in our kind of communities, it's a way to kind of maintain safety or peace or protect the family. But silence, secrecy is another pathway for trauma transmission. Even though we want to protect the family from judgment or shame, this silence, this survival strategy, I'll call it, and I'll call it that because it's helped ancestors survive by hiding what needed to be hidden to avoid conflict or danger. It can end up causing us problems in the long term. So in Caribbean communities, we also need to consider the language here, because we might not use the words silence and secrecy. We might call it pride. We're a proud family. We are strong. We don't loud up the place. We don't air out family matters. We endure. We don't complain. And again, the pride helped people survive. However, it meant that sometimes pain, suffering doesn't have a place to go. So then what are the costs of the silence and the secrecy? Let's say a grandmother survives a crisis but suppresses her emotions so that she can keep the peace. It's very likely her daughter is going to inherit that suppression. The granddaughter may eventually experience this anxiety that she don't know where it come from. Every time something feels uncertain, overwhelming anxiety. No one talks about it. What gets passed down? Confusion. And then also holding these secrets under the guise of pride becomes this really heavy burden that decreases our trust in others, our ability to trust others, and it also creates this sense of insecurity, that shame I was talking about earlier, and this overwhelming sense of loneliness.
Going back to that granddaughter and feeling this overwhelming sense of anxiety, in the age that we live in now, would she go seek counseling, or do you think she would just suffer silently? Or there's more than one way of doing it, right? But
yeah, there's more than one way.
What do you see in your practice?
When individuals come to me, so if we take this granddaughter, thinking, would she seek help? Well, if they've entered through my door or shown up on my Zoom call, then they've definitely taken at least one first step towards their healing. I do think in the generation that we're seeing now, we're seeing more of the children, more of the younger people, they're willing to say, I want to no longer carry or perpetuate generational curses. They're saying, I don't want to allow trauma to keep moving forward. I want to change the narrative, the story, and I want us to push forward healing and repair. And so that's what I see even if it doesn't look like that in the very beginning stages of therapy, the moment that you have called me for a consultation, that's you saying, I would like to learn to set some of these burdens down.
And that's when healing starts.
Yes.
Well, I hope more people call you via Zoom or... In many respects, let's face it, the men going to sea and the women staying here, that's built a very resilient population. We can't argue with that. And to a large degree, very successful. So no one is saying anything we have anything to be ashamed of. We're just saying that hair is what may be also existing and not being talked about. And despite these hardships, Cayman developed strong family networks. But how does resilience and trauma coexist in the same lineage?
Something that I often talk about, I mentioned quite a few times now, the trauma pathway, trauma travels down. But in the same way that we can inherit legacy burdens, trauma, we can also inherit resilience and courage from our elders, our ancestors. The survival strategies that we developed, even the ones that were harmful, they were solutions at one time. They helped our ancestors survive. We talked about our maritime history, but we also in our history have a period of enslavement. There are people who survived enslavement, as well as people who survived maritime hardship. And resilience is about this ability to adapt. So this has been passed down to us. And so we can not only look at and honor the pain that was carried, but we can also look at and honor and thank the parts of us, our histories that learned how we survive. So resilience and trauma can both be passed down.
We've talked a lot about trauma and a little bit about healing, but how do we notice, and you brought it up previously about the nervous system. What does this look like and feel like?
Ooh, what can trauma look like and feel like?
Yeah, from a nervous system point of view, to help people understand.
Yeah, so when we talk about a dysregulated nervous system, I'll put it in, I'm going to call them popularized terms. People are often familiar with fight or flight system.
Mm-hmm.
So this is under one part of the nervous system, or even a subsection of the nervous system called the autonomic nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
When our parasympathetic nervous system is activated, this is what's known as rest and digest. Things are quite chill. We are capable of managing kind of the smaller stressors or even bigger stressors, and we come back to our baseline. And then we have our sympathetic nervous system, which very crudely is responsible for the fight or flight. So we have different responses to traumas or experiences which make us feel like we're under threat. That could be fight. So I approach the threat, try to get rid of it in some way by approaching it. Flight is where I try to get away from the threat. So fight can look like aggression, violence, property damage. Flight can look like I hang up the phone, I leave a space. But there are other responses as well. It could look like fawning. So fawning is when we people please. We try to appeal to whatever it is we deem as threatening. And then we also have a freeze response. This is where we kind of stop. We stop moving, we may shut down, and that is to prevent the threat from attacking us further. And so these are evolutionary responses that we have to threats. They've been passed down through generations to generations. And so when we speak about trauma responses, a lot of the time we can see them fall under these categories. And so when we're talking about nervous system regulation, which seems to be, in the zeitgeist right now, we're not talking about everything having to be calm and chill. We're talking about the ability for us to respond to a threat or an experience that we deem distressing without making the crisis even worse.
I really hope that the audience is getting some of this right now, because we see a big influx of autoimmune diseases and a high degree of anxiety in Cayman, which could, I mean, there are many contributions to this. But I also believe it has a nugget of this in it too, the intergenerational. And I'm glad we had you here to name it. And maybe we don't have a language for it yet, but we'll get there. Is there anything else that you would like the audience to know about this subject before we end the interview and go on to our next one?
I guess, you mentioned language a few times.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who's to say we can't create our own language for this? One that doesn't mean that we rely on secrecy and pushing things to the side, one that makes it safe enough for us to share what's happening. Because when we give language to something, it means that we're going to make it easier for people to become aware and notice what's happening inside of them. Notice that, oh, maybe something is off. And I'm starting to notice patterns. And that's because my community has created a language for what this feeling is that I'm experiencing. And I don't think it needs to look any particular way. And I genuinely believe we already have a language for it. We can pull from ancestral knowledge. We don't need to necessarily rely on, westernized ways of healing. We can look and see what people did historically in our lineage to heal and connect and repair.
What is one or two things people could do to start to have that conversation about? Because at this point it would be great granddad, right? But to see, they could talk about those times. How would that conversation come up? Not from blame or anything, but just try to understand what might be happening.
Yeah, so this is the elder that went through the original difficulties and traumas, or do you mean kind of generations later, how they might talk about it? Or
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think for the younger generations, I think they're already exploring things like maybe journaling, writing. So maybe before you take the step to talk to someone else, maybe you journal about something that was never discussed. Or if you want to speak with your elder, maybe you can ask a question from a space of curiosity, or that's non-invasive.
Mm-hmm.
Just in terms of, I asked my mommy the other day, I said, Mommy, you said your daddy was a seaman. What was that like for you all? What did you all have to do when he was away? What did your mommy have to do and take over? And, her mommy did everything in the household looking after those kids. And so it can be quite a gentle question, just out of curiosity. I want to learn more about my history.
Okay.
So kind of gentle entry into uncovering your family's story.
Okay. What is the name of your business again? In Mind?
In Mind Psychological Services.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Johnson, for being on For the Health of It. She owns her own company, In Mind Psychological Services, and she currently works in the UK, but we hope to have her back soon. Thank you for being on For the Health of It. We are moving you to the life you want.
There's nothing more important than your health, and seeking expert healthcare with physicians you can trust is what you deserve. UHealth, the University of Miami Health System, offers peace of mind to you and your family with a first-class experience. Our patient coordinators assist with everything you need before, during, and after your stay with us. As South Florida's only academic-based health system, UHealth offers cutting-edge treatment, compassionate care, and life-changing results just a flight away. Learn more at umiamihealth.org/international.
Are you feeling anxious, overthinking, or stressed, struggling with sleep and focus? Your physical health may be suffering too. Research shows that stress directly impacts your well-being, making it harder for your body to heal. At the Lightroom, we're here to help you find your balance. Our unique facility promotes the theta brain state, which is your body's natural way to achieve restorative rest and repair. Visit us at the Lightroom, Pasadora Place in Georgetown, and let us guide you back to wellness, rediscovering tranquility and harmony, because you deserve to feel your best. Call us on 938-HEAL or book online at www.thelightroom.ky.
When I first started going to Healthcare Pharmacy, it was because it was convenient. But over the years, I continued to shop there because I trusted them. One day I was picking up my prescription, and the pharmacist noticed an over-the-counter medication in my basket. She said, "I hope that's not yours. It will interact with your prescription." And I thought, wow, thank you. Trust is so important when it comes to your health. Healthcare Pharmacy, with 2 locations, Grand Harbor and Governor Square, where they care about my health.
This is For the Health of It with Tara Bush. Brought to you by the Health Services Authority. Caring people, quality service. Visit hsa.ky.
For the Health of It with Tara Bush.
Brought to you by Healthcare Pharmacy, where they care about your health. 2 locations, Governor Square and Grand Harbor. Refill and transfer prescriptions online. Call 947-8900 or visit healthcarepharmacy.ky. Also brought to you by Cayman Medical Center, Cayman's most awarded private medical clinic.
And UHealth, International University of Miami.
World-class healthcare in the heart of Miami.
The Lightroom, your holistic sanctuary for physical and mental restoration, repair, and rejuvenation. The power that made the body heals the body. 38 Pasadora Place, Georgetown. Find us online at www.thelightroom.ky or call 938-HEAL.